I've always been good at responding, not reacting, responding. People came to me when they needed clarity, advice, a steady voice. I gave it to them. Calm, measured, correct. What I didn't give to anyone was uncertainty. I met her during a phase of my life that felt solved. No loose ends, no urgent questions. I'd spent years building a version of myself that worked. She didn't challenge that, at least not at first. Her name was Laura. We met through mutual friends. Nothing dramatic, no story-worthy beginning. Just a conversation that didn't rush to fill silence. I noticed that. She asked questions I wasn't used to. Not what I did, but why I chose it. I answered easily. Logic is comfortable. Emotion is less cooperative. Laura had a way of pausing before she spoke. Not hesitation, consideration, like she weighed the impact of her words before letting them land. We started seeing each other regularly. Dinners that turned reflective, walks without destination, evenings where time passed unnoticed. I liked how simple it felt, efficient even. She told me once, smiling, "You always know exactly what to say." I took it as a compliment. I didn't realize it was an observation. I noticed something early on. She didn't interrupt. She waited for me to finish my thought, for me to continue, for something else. There were moments she'd look at me like she was expecting a second answer, one I hadn't offered. One night, over wine, she asked, "Do you ever not know what you feel?" The question surprised me, not because it was deep, because I'd never considered admitting it. "I don't really see the benefit in that," I said. She smiled slightly. Didn't argue. But the smile didn't reach her eyes. Laura wasn't intense. She didn't push emotional boundaries. She didn't demand access. She simply stayed present. And presence can be disarming when you're used to being composed. I realized something uncomfortable. When conversations drifted toward vulnerability, I became articulate. I explained feelings instead of expressing them. I offered insight instead of exposure. She noticed. Of course she did. One evening she said quietly, "You talk about emotions like they belong to someone else." That landed. I laughed it off. Again. "I just think clarity matters," I said. She nodded. "But so does confusion." After that, I started noticing the pattern. Every time she leaned in emotionally, I leaned back intellectually. Not intentionally, instinctively. The relationship continued, smooth, respectful, but something underneath began to shift. Not conflict, assessment. She began asking fewer questions, not disengaged, more observant, like she was watching how often I avoided not knowing. I didn't sense danger. I sensed comfort. That was my mistake. One evening, as we were walking back to her place, she said, "Do you ever get tired of having answers?" I paused, longer than usual. "I don't think so," I said. She nodded slowly. "I think I would," she replied. That night, lying beside her, I felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not sadness, uncertainty. And instead of staying with it, I reached for something safe. Sleep. At the time, I told myself everything was fine. There was no conflict, no pressure, no urgency. But looking back, that's when the story actually recalibrated. That difference mattered. She stayed kind, attentive, engaged, but something in the way she listened changed. Less curiosity, more observation, like she was studying a pattern she hadn't wanted to name before. I noticed it during conversations. She let my answers land and then waited. Not for more words, for something else. One night, she asked, "What scares you?" The question felt out of place. We were talking about work, about a project I'd been leading. I laughed lightly. "Deadlines," I said. She didn't smile. "I'm serious," she said. That tone. Not confrontational, intent. I searched for something reasonable. Failure, disappointment, losing momentum, all true, all distant. She watched me closely. "You're describing risks," she said. "I'm asking about fear." That distinction unsettled me. I leaned back, crossed my arms, a reflex I hadn't noticed before. "I don't spend much time there," I replied. She nodded. "I can tell." After that, the dynamic shifted, subtly. She stopped inviting me into emotional conversations. Instead, she brought them to the edge. and waited to see if I'd step forward. I didn't. I began to sense tension, not explosive, a quiet mismatch, like two people walking side by side at different speeds. One evening, she shared something personal, a story about her childhood, her voice steady but careful. I listened, offered insight, perspective. I did what I was good at. She finished speaking, looked at me, and said, I wasn't looking for clarity. I was looking for company. That stung because it was accurate. I felt the urge to explain, to reframe, to say I cared, but explaining had become my shield. Do you feel with me? She asked, or do you just understand me? The room went quiet. I didn't answer right away, not because I was considering the truth, because I was calculating the risk. I feel in my own way, I said. It sounded fair, balanced, neutral. She looked away. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked tired. I don't doubt that, she said softly. I just don't know where your way leaves me. After that night, I noticed something else. She stopped leaning toward me physically. Not distant, just no longer seeking reassurance. She became more self-contained. I mistook that for stability. It was preparation. I told myself we were simply different, that not everyone needs emotional depth, that harmony doesn't require mirroring, all logical, all incomplete. One afternoon, she said, I don't think you trust not knowing. I frowned. Everyone wants clarity, I replied. She shook her head. Not everyone avoids confusion like it's dangerous. That sentence stayed with me, unsettling, because it was true. The next time we were together, she didn't bring anything heavy. She talked about her day, about books, about plans. But she didn't reach, not emotionally, not physically. And for the first time, I felt something I couldn't explain. A sense that my certainty had built a wall I didn't know how to climb. I still believed everything was under control, that this was a phase, that relationships naturally even out. But somewhere in the quiet space between us, a question had already been answered. She chose a quiet just ending. Not by me. That was fitting. Laura invited me over on a weekday evening. No urgency in her voice. No tension. I sensed it before I arrived. Some conversations don't need drama to be final. She didn't sit close to me. That detail mattered. I've been paying attention, she said, to how we talk, to how we don't. I listened, for once without preparing a response. You always know what to say, she continued, and I don't think that's a flaw. I waited. But I need someone who doesn't always know, she said. Someone who can stay with me in the uncertainty. I felt my chest tighten, not panic, recognition. I think I've been asking you to join me somewhere you don't go, she said, and that's not fair to either of us. I opened my mouth, stopped. There was nothing to correct, nothing to reframe. You're not cold, she said. You're protected. That word again, protected. I don't want to spend my life explaining myself to someone who understands me but doesn't feel me, she said. That was the first time I felt something break, not loudly, internally. I care about you, I said. She nodded. I know, she replied, and that's why I need to leave. She didn't cry, neither did I. Some endings don't require tears to be real. After she left, I stayed where I was, not frozen, just present, with nothing to respond to. In the days that followed, I noticed how often people came to me for answers. I gave them, as always, but something had shifted. I began noticing my own avoidance, how quickly I categorized emotions instead of experiencing them, how often I escaped into explanation. I realized something I hadn't before. Knowing how to respond isn't the same as being available, and availability requires risk. For the first time, I sat with questions I couldn't solve, didn't label, didn't resolve, just felt. It was uncomfortable, unproductive, necessary. I don't know if I'll ever see Laura again. Some people aren't meant to stay. They're meant to reveal something. She showed me that clarity can become a cage, that certainty can keep people out. That not knowing is sometimes the most honest place to meet. I still like having answers. That hasn't changed, but I'm learning something new. Sometimes the bravest thing you can say is not, here's what I think, but I don't know how I feel yet, and staying anyway. That's the part I'm still practicing. The part that doesn't come with instructions. The part where connection actually begins.